Hey guys, welcome to the seventh and final episode of our web development workshop. So today we'll be going over how to finish up our timer and all the things that are involved and needed for us to finish it up.
Yep, the last thing left for us to do is a countdown to the next Olympics, which will be held in 23rd of July 2021. So before we make our timer, we have to understand how date and time object works in JavaScript. Since we'll be performing operations on date and time, it would be best for us to store them in a variable. Hence, we can declare the date and time object just like how we would create any other variable, using the keyword let. There are multiple ways of creating dates, and we will only be using two ways. So the most common and simplest way of creating a date object will be to instantiate an object for the current time. This is shown in the code snippet below. We declare a variable date which stores the object date with the keyword new. The new keyword is necessary when initializing objects, and the next line basically inserts the date object into a HTML element with the ID myDiv. Dates can also create an object pointing to any instant in time. Eric, will you do the honors?
Yep, so what happens if we want to make a date at another point in time? Because the method that Kenneth just taught you guys, you can only make it for the current point in time. So, since we're trying to make a countdown to the Olympic Games next year, it would obviously make sense to have the date that we want be the date of the Olympic Games next year. So that leads us to our second way of creating a date. So we add variables into the date in order of year, month, day, hour, minute, second, and millisecond. So keep in mind, you don't need all these things because if you leave any of them out, it'll just shift it over. So it'll basically say that you're replacing that column, I guess, with nothing, and then I'll move everything over to the left. So an example of the code is here. So notice how it's very similar. We still declare our date variable using either var or let. And then we say it's a new date object, just like we mentioned in our last slide. But instead of having nothing inside of our date object, we add in our variables, which we mentioned earlier, are in the order of year, month, day, hour, minute, and so on. And in this code snippet here, again, we're doing the same thing, and we're displaying the date in our web page. So now that we have abilities to make the date right now and the date in the future, I'll get Kenneth to take it away and explain how we find the difference in time.
Good one, Eric. Like normal variables, we can subtract two date objects to get the difference in time between them. This is done by simply subtracting the two variables that contain our dates. Something to keep in mind is that the difference is returned in milliseconds. So in our code below, we have two separate dates, 20th of April 2020 and our current time. We then subtract date 2 from date, which will return to us the difference in time stored in the variable x, which we then add to the DOM. Now it's showtime. The last step will be to display the timer on our website. Eric?
Yeah, of course. So the way that we display our time on our website, if you could probably guess, is that we need to make an element on our webpage to show the time. So we need to make a div because, as we have learned many episodes ago, a div is a segment of our page, and in that segment, we will have our timer. So we need to make a div and give it an ID so that we can get that div and then change it. And then we set the text in the div to be the current time. So the time will be basically the difference between the time of the Olympics next year and our current time, which we now know how to find after learning about subtracting time. And lastly, we just need to update the timer every second so that it updates in real time. All right, so as is tradition, I am in fact the one who gives tasks, as we mentioned earlier. So now that we know about date and time in JavaScript, your last task is to fill in the code to make the timer on our homepage. So as usual, give it a try yourself. I can trust you guys after 6 episodes, right? To give it a try yourself, of course. And that means that you'll pause the video for a bit and come back. And as per tradition, we'll get Kenneth to demonstrate what the final result should look like.
So for the final exercise, your goal is to fill in the function time difference. So what we first need to do is we want to make a new date object which refers to the time right now. So you guys can remember how we do that is obviously first we declare a variable date, and then we initialize a date object using new, and we have no parameters within the date object. This will signify that we want the time right now. Next, we want to create a date which will refer to when the Olympics will happen. That is the 23rd of July in 2021. So 2021, July 23rd. Yep. And find the difference between the dates. Well, as we covered, that's just using a simple minus operation. So Olympic date minus dates should give you that. Remember, difference is now in milliseconds. So we have to apply the function to change milliseconds to time. So below, we save you the hassle and we made the millisecond to time function for you guys. So just call millisecond to time, and inside the duration, you want to put in difference. And that is actually all you need to do. So let's click show and in a new window. Yep, as you can see, we have a timer there in a very cool digital font. So this concludes the demonstration of our final exercise. And your website should look something like this in the very end. Yep, this is the events page. Yep, this is the about page. So yep, to reiterate, this is the final exercise for this workshop, and I hope you guys enjoyed it. Now that our workshop has come to a conclusion, we hope you've taken away some basics regarding constructing a website using HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. As always, practice makes perfect, and maybe one day I'll be able to see the websites you create on your own. So this is Kenneth.
This is Eric.
And thanks for watching our web development workshop.